Hello, Mette and Sira and Manon. This is Robin. I talked some time ago to Sira about science fiction and stuff, and she asked me to post something on this YouTube thing. So, and then actually I watched all of your clips. Yes, and I was just thinking, because also now I saw that you Meta asked some people for feedback and stuff, so then I felt even more invited. But yeah, the feedback thing, I'm not sure exactly what to give feedback on, because also I feel I'm not really sure about exactly the goal of these things. But I have to say the last couple of clips has really sort of something started happening, but it's obvious, no? But yeah, it sounds super good. But anyway, just with science fiction and stuff, just hearing to what you say about it, what you would like to use. There's this one book. You can't read. It's called Neuromancer by William Gibson. And it's this kind of typical cyberpunk book. And he's basically a hacker. And normally the definition of cyberpunk is high-tech, low-life. And that's really typically, I would say Blade Runner is also kind of typical cyberpunk book. It's also usually a lot of implants in bodies, a lot of androids, things like this. And it has actually, it's very rich of spaces, and especially then how they describe how he's actually hacking computers, because it's really spatially oriented. And I think it could be interpreted in a number of ways. Also, he's in these slums in future Japan when he's really describing the atmosphere and the blah blah blah. I think could be useful, and also similarly with Blade Runner, and the book then which Blade Runner is based on, which I also have. It's here, but it's called Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? It's very nice. Also this typical cyberpunk. Also this with spaces, and I think I somehow understand partly what Matt is trying to say to not, I mean, you don't want to sort of illustrate a laser fight. But there is something nice with computer games. That's actually how they sort of use like parameters, all these things, like for example gravity. You can just put a lever down and then you can jump very highly, you know. It's just like all these basic rules they use like parameters, which I think, I don't know, could be useful for you. And then there's this other book that I was thinking about it now going through. It's called Martian Time Slip by Philip K. Dick. And it's basically where I think it could be interesting is it's about lots of things, this book, but one character is a small boy and he has this disease that I forgot the name of. I tried to look it up but I didn't find it, but basically this boy, he sees what will happen in the future and he reacts to it, but it's a bit like a disease, so it's not like he's constantly seeing the future and that's a car and blah blah blah, but like, because he's also very young and physically very unstable, and at one point he looks at this little valley they found on Mars, and he starts drawing something, and it's actually a future slum area of that part, which they realize this later, blah blah blah. Yeah, I was just thinking also in general about science fiction. For example, this Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I remember Sarah said it's kind of science fiction for beginners or whatever. And for me, it's almost not science fiction. I don't know why. I mean, I'm not an expert, but it's just also Star Wars, I would say, is for beginner. It's really those kind of science fiction is really this kind of fetish or masturbation, if you want, in technique, in high tech, and trying to tell a good story with it somehow. where they get these very fantastic guns and all this. And there are some nice older movies, but I mean, it is quite dated, I would say. That way of dealing with it. But then, I mean, Philip K. Dick is of course a very well-known science fiction writer, and the guy who wrote Neuromancer, William Gibson, is also very well known. But I think Philip K. Dick, he's not fetishizing the technique of it. He's really trying to put many other subtle dimensions in it, like many philosophical ones, and so on. That's why I like his books a lot. And also, speaking of science fiction, this is a new book by William Gibson, the guy who wrote Neuromancer. Neuromancer is kind of cult. It's a classic, very well known, a bit of a starter. It's talked about that he mentioned something like the Matrix, which is more or less what we now call internet, but by that time it didn't exist. And then it's this discussion: did the fact that he talked about it, is that why it exists? Blah blah blah. But he was very. In any case, I recommend the book. It's really, really good. But this other book he wrote recently, it's called Pattern Recognition, and what they call is that it's a science fiction, but now, which is kind of how to say, doesn't make sense in a way. But it's not really science fiction now, but it's just so, the characters are so into the high tech of today, and so you could say it is, and it's dealing with some phenomena now in today's like high tech internet based communities. It's actually quite nice to read it like that. It's kind of hyped. It's called Pattern Recognition. And also, I was thinking about one thing. It's nice that you do it on YouTube, because you cannot avoid people like me just adding my stuff. But also, what you can do is many of these books you can find online, either on a homepage or on Pirate Bay or all these things. Like really many, especially science fiction. Yes, I think that is all. And I like this whole 3D map thing to use instead of a score. Yeah, I think that's all.